Well, here we go. So there's two things with this series. I'm, first of all, very, very excited that we're kicking this off at the beginning of the summer. Two things that make this series unique and I think extra special. One is that we are actually tracking together with our kids upstairs. So Countryside Kids, we wrote this series. This is a Countryside series. And as we were talking with our kids team, Becky said, I think we can write kids curriculum that follows right along with the conversations we're having here. So I was just upstairs with your kids, spending time with them this morning and establishing the theme for the day and these kinds of things, and spending time around the campfire with them. Yeah, there we go. So it was like starting the service with the kids, and so they're like, "Hey, Pastor Nate wants to talk to you guys," and the kids are like, "Okay, great," and so I introduce what we're doing. And it's like 5 minutes, right? And finish, and like, well, you guys, I'm gonna go talk to your parents, and we're gonna have, make sure you talk to them after service. And one of the kids, and I won't say which kid it is, but you're all gonna think it was your kid, says, wait, that's all? When we're downstairs, Pastor Nate talks for like an hour. So I think that's permission to extend the sermon that I had planned for today to an hour, so I meet expectations. And so we're talking about the same thing. So when you pick up your kids or when you see the kids around, say, hey, what are you guys talking about upstairs? What are you learning? What is it that God's teaching you? Let's talk about the way this plays out. We're all going to be on the same page throughout this entire series. So like the puppet show is written around these stories, and the kids' conversation and activities, all these things. A lot of work. So thank the kids team when you see them, and talk to your kids about what they're learning, because we're learning the same things. 2, mountain time, which is a lot like table time, just in the mountains, right? Doesn't that sound like fun? So this summer, 3 times we're going to, as a church, just open up where normally we would come on a Thursday evening during the school year, and we would have table time, right? A meal and a conversation around tables. 3 times this summer, we're going to climb Lookout Mountain, which is really on like part of Lookout Mountain right here on this campus. But we're going to climb 3 times, so the dates are on the screen behind me, and to be able to, as a church, do a family-friendly hike, have a meal, and then go do something fun, go get in the mountains together. So put those on your calendar. We'll be talking about them a lot more as we go, but mountain time, spending some time out and doing adventures together. Okay. So I hope as we go through this series, first of all, I think it's just going to be a beautiful time. I think there's a lot that God wants to teach us through these conversations. But I hope that not just that we're inspired on a Sunday morning, or we're inspired when we're hiking together up Lookout Mountain. I hope that the conversations that we have on Sunday morning echo as you go about whatever activities you have this summer. So you're driving through the hills, or you're driving down to Denver, or driving through the Rocky Mountains, and you're seeing mountains, and you're seeing these things, and you're like, I remember something about mountains. I remember what God teaches us and how God moves and what God did and has done and is doing on the mountains. So as you drive and hike and climb and retreat, that I pray that our conversations down here will echo up wherever it is that you're going. And so this series, Mountains, is built around 7 stories in the book of Matthew. So as Matthew recorded Jesus' life, his death, his resurrection, it's in so many ways there's these transitional or big moments that are marked by time spent on the mountain, where Jesus gets up into the mountains. And so these mountain stories provide markers throughout Matthew's account of Jesus' life. Now, I'm not saying that Matthew intentionally made chapters like this, but the way that he tells the story of Jesus is in so many ways shaped and given framing by stories on the mountains. And so what we're going to learn as we work our way through this series is that God does seem to do unique work in the mountains. Right? There are so many key moments throughout the scriptures, throughout the Bible, that take place on mountains. This is true in the Old Testament. This is true in the New Testament. So in the Old Testament, God, just to kind of give a quick survey of some of the things that happen on mountains in conversation with God. God on mountains makes promises to his people. Right? God met with Moses and gave him the law on the mountains. He gave them instructions for living as the people of God. Mountains, if you read through the Psalms, mountains are mentioned repeatedly as places for refuge and inspiration. The prophets, many of the prophets had experiences with God on the mountains. Even Noah's ark came to rest on a mountain after the flood, right? Mount Ararat. And so that's the Old Testament. There's a lot more. If you start looking, you're going to see them everywhere. But in the New Testament, Jesus' life is marked by these mountain moments. So much so that as Matthew records the story of Jesus, mountains show up over and over and over again. So many key moments taking place on mountains. From before Jesus called his first disciples to follow after him, to the very end of his earthly ministry where he gathered his disciples to himself and spoke a commissioning over them, a blessing over them, and then sent them to the ends of the earth with the gospel. It's the Old Testament. New Testament. What about our lives? We know experiences on mountains. We start to list them. These are mountain moments where often we get up high and for whatever reason, we increase our altitude and we start to feel closer to God. Right? As if a few thousand feet of elevation makes us somehow closer to God, more proximate to God. But there's something about being up in the high country that just sort of helps us feel closer to God. Mountains or time spent in the hills are moments of refuge and recovery. They're experiences of testing and pushing ourselves. Experiences on mountains can be experiences where we feel a sense of awe over what God has created. As we look out and we take in the beauty and the majesty of what God has created, and we look and we're just in awe, not only of the creation, but what the creation points to, the Creator. Some of us, actually, if we pause here for just a moment, some of us, maybe it's been a long time since we were in awe of something that God created, and it shows, right? It shows up in all sorts of ways in our lives. We need to realize the majesty, not only of the creation, but of the Creator. Experiences on mountains can be moments of victory, right? We win the fight in the high country, and then we bring that victory back home with us. That we come back down the mountain different, right? We just sit at a trailhead at Crow Peak and watch people when they're coming down back to their cars, and they're like, I did it, right? I got to the very top, and I got to take it all in, and I'm coming back down, and my day is different, maybe not just because I'm tired, but because I actually accomplished something. I have a good friend who he and I have climbed many, many mountains over many, many years together. And we have these conversations sometimes, and we'll maybe be meeting for coffee, or we're on the phone and we're processing things about life and whatever, and we'll have these moments and we just pause, and one or the other of us will say, I actually think this conversation needs to take place climbing a mountain. Right? I think we just need to talk this one out in a way that just a couple cups of coffee and over a table, we need to be moving and climbing and getting out in creation and experiencing, and we'll have this conversation, this extended talk. We need to do this climbing a mountain. Because we know, right, we all know, that certain lessons are best learned in altitude. Right? Certain lessons you just learn better when you're up high. Certain choices become crystal clear when you get out of the noise of life and the rhythms of life, and you can take it in and see it differently. And certain things in us get exposed in the testing and in the work of climbing the mountains. And so let's talk about mountaintop experiences. We come to the mountains with expectations. Right? Often we come with expectations of what mountaintop experiences mean for us. And so this first story and this conversation that we're having probably isn't what we think of when we think of a mountaintop experience. Because isn't it interesting, when we think about mountains, we think of the mountaintops and what it looks like for us to get perspective and to see further and to be up and out of the normal rhythms of our lives. We think of mountaintops as the high point. And sometimes we forget the struggle to get there, or the struggle to get back down once we've gotten up there. We certainly don't think about the mountaintop itself as a place of struggle. Jesus in Matthew 4 is beginning his earthly ministry, right? Matthew has told the story of Jesus' birth and his early years, and now he's moving and beginning to tell the story of Jesus' earthly ministry. And so John the Baptist has baptized Jesus, and then there's this larger wilderness story that the conversation this morning, this mountaintop experience, is found within. I actually preached about this whole wilderness experience about a year and a half ago as part of our the Fight series. in a message called Winning the Fight. So if you're interested in hearing in detail, unpacking the whole of Jesus' wilderness experience and what it means for us and what we can learn from it, go back. It's on YouTube or on our website. You can catch that whole thing. We're going to be looking at one specific moment in this wilderness experience. In many ways, as we go through this series, there's going to be like some interaction between previous messages that we've had, previous conversations that we've had, but we're going to look at it in context and through a different lens as we see Jesus on the mountains. This is before Jesus has called any disciples to follow him. Right? This is Jesus in many ways preparing for his earthly ministry. So Jesus has been baptized. He goes into the wilderness. The devil shows up, begins to tempt him, offers him these two different temptations that then lead to a third temptation. He questions Jesus' identity as the Son of God. He questions Jesus' ability to care for himself or whether or not God cares for Jesus or the Father cares for the Son. And then in a last-ditch effort, as the devil is tempting Jesus, he takes him to a mountaintop. And on this mountaintop, we're going to pick up the story, Matthew 4, starting in verse 8. It says, and again, this is right, part 3 of this wilderness testing that Jesus has gone through. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. This is not the first time that a mountain like this, and it's not the last time that a mountain like this will show up in the Bible. God commanded Moses in the Old Testament, commanded Moses to climb to the top of Mount Nebo so that he could see the promised land, right? As God is making a promise to Moses and to God's people about where come to the top of this mountain and I will show you, I'll promise to you what you're going to receive from me. Right? There's this perspective, this mountaintop kind of conversation. In Revelation 21, actually before we get there, let's just say that on that mountain, God made a promise. Then in Revelation 21, as John is seeing the end of human history, as John is being shown by God where all of this will reach its ultimate conclusion, John is taken to the top of a mountain by an angel. And from this vantage point, he watches as the New Jerusalem comes down from heaven. On that mountain, God gave John and gave all of us hope. And so the devil has brought Jesus to a similar kind of setting, but the conversation is very, very different. Verse 9, and he said to him, all these I will give you if you fall down and worship me. He says, all these I will give you if you fall down and worship me. The devil has made his offer, right? This conversation between Jesus and the devil has said, so here's what you can expect from me. If you're willing to make this trade, let me just talk about what you're going to get. All of this, right? All of this, I will give you everything that you can see. The enemy negotiating, making an offer, negotiating a trade that has at least 3 layers to it. One is a layer of worship. Worship that's turned into something that's about what we would receive from worship, not what we are remembering and reflecting on in worship. Not the glory that we're giving God and the way that we're remembering what God has done for us, but to say, worship, what do I receive in return for my worship? Right? This temptation shows up, not just for Jesus, it shows up for us in all kinds of different ways, but for us to come and we say, I don't know, I don't know if I got anything from that time of worship. It's actually not about us. It's not about what we receive from it. It's what we're giving back to God in terms of his glory and remembering what he has done. To turn worship into some sort of trade, some sort of negotiation. The devil, in this conversation with Jesus, is establishing this concept. What do we receive from worship? We're offered all sorts of things in the exchange. And so Jesus is leading the way in terms of how we handle and how we approach this kind of offer. And there's a layer of allegiance. Right? It's a bold move for the devil to ask the Son of God to align with the enemy. Right? It is a bold move. And yet the devil still makes the play. He does this not just in this conversation with Jesus, but there are questions and offers of allegiance all the time with all sorts of promises that are made to us. Right? The devil isn't just making Jesus this offer. He's saying, if you will align with me, if you will align with my values and my priorities, if you will serve me, then here's all the things that I'm going to provide for you, or I could provide for you. It's a question of allegiance. This would be a good moment maybe to put a little bookmark in this story, because when we get to our last mountain story, Jesus is going to gather his closest followers. He's going to tell them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This is on the other side of the cross. This is on the other side of Jesus' act of obedience to the Father, his suffering and death, his submission to the will of the Father. It says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. No shortcuts. No bowing to the enemy. Authority. And there's at least one more layer. And it's a layer of getting to the right thing in the wrong way. Right? We are so prone to shortcuts. We're so prone to saying, how can I accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished? Like in the most efficient way possible. How can I make this happen? Like we talk about this actually as a team here at Countryside quite a bit. It's not just that we get things done, but that we get things done the right way. Right? We have these conversations all the time. Not just that we get there, but how we get there matters, right? The way that we navigate life and relationship with people, the way that we approach and do what we do here as Countryside Church, how we get there, how we do it matters. Not just that we did it, not just that we accomplished it. And so here's the devil offering Jesus a shortcut, saying, look, I know your mission. I know your mission is to claim the world. So the devil says, I'll give you the world in response or in exchange for your worship, your allegiance. Offering Jesus the shortcut, the world, without having to go through the brutality of the cross. There's so many layers to this offer. And yet there's really only one right choice in response. Verse 10, then Jesus said to him, be gone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. If we wanted to paraphrase this moment or summarize what Jesus is saying, we might say something like Jesus saying, why would I ever trade my connection with the Father for what you're offering? Right? Why would I ever trade my connection with the Father for whatever it is that you're offering? So Jesus, not only repulsed by the offer, he actually rejects the concept outright. He's like, we're not negotiating price here. Like, if you would give me more for this, I would do this. He rejects the premise of the offer. He says, I could never. And then he uses the Father's words. And so from way up on the mountain, Jesus looks out on everything, all the kingdoms of this world and all their splendor, all these things. He looks and he sees all these things, and nothing that he saw was worth the trade. We talk about establishing values. We talk about operating as a people of values. Maybe we should pay attention to what Jesus values. Jesus says, I can see from this mountain literally everything, all the kingdoms, as good as this world can get. I can see all of it. And not one thing, and actually not even all of those things combined, is worth the offer that you're making. So he leverages both his connection with the Father, and he leverages his Father's words. And this isn't the last mountain that Jesus will have to deal with. As we walk through this series, we're going to see various moments where there are true mountaintop kinds of experiences where we look and we say, what a beautiful moment. And there's going to be moments where Jesus has hardship, where he is tested, where he's going through difficult things in the mountains. And so this is not the last moment and the last mountain that Jesus will have to deal with as he walked this earth. But we know this for those of us who have spent time preparing to climb high mountains, is that the best preparation for climbing a high mountain is climbing other mountains, right? It's just how it works. How do you get ready for the big mountain? You climb mountains. It's just how it works. There's no better way to prepare for mountain climbing or mountaintop experiences than to climb mountain after mountain after mountain. Verse 11, and then the devil left him. And behold, angels came and were ministering to him. That in this moment, the devil has done his best to try and get Jesus to take him up on the offer. He's tried 3 different ways, and in particular on the mountain in its most pointed moment. And Jesus has gone through all of this. And on the other side of that struggle, he's now being cared for by the angels. So we look at this story and this mountaintop experience. This mountaintop experience is maybe different than how we would like to define mountaintop experiences, and we learn 3 lessons. And the first one is this, is there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. The devil, actually in all 3 of the temptations in the wilderness that the devil offered to Jesus, it's a shortcut in some way. It's like you can turn those rocks into bread. You don't have to be hungry. You can shortcut this process. There's the like cheating death without actually experiencing death. Like jump off this high temple and like before you hit the ground, you're gonna be okay. Like cheating death, not beating death. It's a shortcut. And then the world in exchange for your allegiance, in exchange for your worship. The whole world without the pain of the cross. But as Jesus catches this conversation and has this conversation, it shows that shortcut would come at too great a price. So I will not trade this shortcut. I will not take the shortcut because I have to go through all the things that I have to go through. And so for us, we see this moment with Jesus and recognize that our lives are so full of shortcut offers. Right? How do we get to what it is that we're hoping to get to? How do we get to the things that we hope God will give us without having to go through all the kinds of things that God might take us through to get us to those things? Can we find a shortcut? Is there an easier way, a simpler way, a way that doesn't disrupt our comfort zones or require more of us than we're willing to give in this process? So maybe for many of us, this is an opportunity for us to say, I'm going to stop looking for shortcuts. God, what is it you're calling me to? What is it you're placing in front of me? What is it that might take some time? But in the process of that time, you're forming me and shaping me along the way. And so instead of looking for a shortcut, we say, God, what is it you're doing in this season to prepare me for what it is that you've placed in front of me? We don't take shortcuts, right? There are no shortcuts. Lesson 2, our values aren't for sale. Our values aren't for sale. Let's talk for a moment about values and choices. Right? We all have values. Some of our values aren't in the right order. Some of our values aren't healthy. They're not the right values, but we have values. The problem is we don't always make choices based on our values. Right? We all have values, but we don't always make choices based on our values, or at least the values that we state. And when we don't do that, by the way, there's a term for not making choices based on our values. It's called a lack of integrity. We haven't integrated our values with the way we actually live our lives. So we go around and we say we value things, but then when we get a better offer, a shortcut offer, we're actually tempted to take something we value and trade it for something that we don't value, that's less than the thing that we value. That's us lacking integrity. We're not integrating our values with the way we live our lives and the way that we make our choices. So our values, they're really values, not just stated values, but if they're really values, they aren't for sale. Jesus shows us what this looks like. He can look at literally everything and say, nothing that I see and all of those things combined is not worth trading my values for. To be a people of integrity. And so this week, maybe we need to take some time. Maybe for some of us, we need to actually grab our phones and put a reminder for this afternoon or sometime this week. And we make an honest list of our top values. To pause and say, these are the things. Maybe it's 3 to 5 things. We say, I value this. And make that list and be honest about it. Don't just say, I'm going to give the answer that I think if Pastor Nate was reading my list, I'd like for him to see. Say, make a list of the things you truly value. Maybe even rank it. Put it in an order of like, these are the things, these are my top values. And this is the most important thing to me. And make that list. Honest list, honest reflection. And then take a step back. Look at that list and ask 2 questions. 1, where is your relationship with God on that list? Right? Where is it that your relationship with God fits within your values, the values that should drive the choices that you make? And then question 2, are your values actually driving your choices? Right? Those things you say you value. If you have honest reflection and say, I value this, do your choices have integrity? Right? Do you have integrity with your values? Do your values actually shape how you make your choices? The problem is actually for some of us, we might need to spend some time with this because they might actually be, our values might actually be driving our choices exactly. The problem is that our values might be unhealthy or they might be out of order and they're driving our choices, but they're driving our choices in the wrong direction. For us to say there are values, we have values, let's make sure we have the right values, we have them in the right order, and then we have integrity in the way that we apply our values to the choices that we make. Lesson 3. Perspective is worth the climb. Perspective is worth the climb. If you've ever spent time up high in the mountains or maybe in an airplane and you look and it's like everything just seems so small. When you get up high enough, all you can see looks pretty small, right? It might be vast. You're going to be able to see for a long, long way, but nothing looks very big from up high. And so when you look and you get up high, you talk about a relationship with God. When you get up high and you see how small everything really is, and then you start to realize this sense of closeness. Not that God is distant from us and we have to climb a mountain to see him or get connected or close to him, but we sense God maybe more closely when we're up high. And I think part of that has to do with we actually get to see how small the stuff that's all around us and is creating noise and chaos in our lives actually is. When we look and we say, why would I trade any of or all of this for my relationship with God? Why would I? That is all so small. Even the most, the biggest things in our lives, when we get up high enough, when we look down, it's like, that thing is so small. The things we face, right? The struggles that we experience, the desires, distractions, that we can see when we get up out of the noise of our lives, we can see more than just what's in front of us. We actually even begin to see scale. We get up high enough that we can actually look and we say, so actually I'm now understanding that thing that felt so significant and so big right in front of me, that when I get away from it a little bit, I get up a little bit higher, my perspective, I realize that that's actually not as big as I thought it was. So for us to spend time, not just in the mountains, but connected with God, the perspective that helps us understand the scale of things and the things that we're facing and the things that we desire and the things that keep us distracted, to say, get out of that and get some perspective. Because some of us, I know, there are hard things that you're facing. There are challenges that when you're staring them down and they're right in front of you, it's like, I could never get past this. I could never win this. I could never get over this. There's nothing I can do. This thing that I'm facing is so big. It's like, get close to God and get some perspective. Right? It's not as big. It's not as insurmountable. It might be big. I mean, it might be like you can't handle it on your own kind of big, but God can handle it. And to see further than what's just in front of you. Get that sense of scale. And so maybe for some of us, we need to spend some time with the question, what is it that we're facing? What is it that we're allowing to create noise in our lives, allowing to create chaos in our lives, allowing us to be distracted? Or what are we choosing as distractions that when we get away from them a little bit, we realize the sense of scale and the actual low importance that they have? What is it that you're facing that you need to get up and out of to get perspective? Maybe pick a thing. It's like the list that we made about our values, but maybe make a thing that says, this is that thing. It's like this overwhelming thought, this thought that every time I think about it, it's like I know I can't handle it. Just get away from it a little bit. Get connected with God. Pray over it. Spend time listening to what God has to say about it. Let God give you a sense of scale and a perspective on the thing that you're facing, and then let him lead you through it. And so in a moment, Pastor James is going to lead us through a time of communion. Communion has a way of giving us perspective. Right? Communion has a way of showing us what actually matters, of getting us past the noise and recognizing that Jesus has done for us what we never could have done for ourselves. And so I would invite you, as we celebrate communion today, as we remember what Jesus has done, to allow this to be a moment where we recognize the choices that we're making, where we repent if we need to repent, but where we get perspective on what really matters.